Dave, welcome to the Kitsap Sun Editorial Board. It's just you, of course. Your opponent decided not to join us, but we'll still have a conversation here. Deborah and Roger are here, and then obviously we'll catch everyone else on what we talk about. What we'll do is, why don't we just let you take a few minutes to kind of tell us, we've read your background, we kind of know what you've been doing, but tell us why you're interested in continuing in this role.
Well, I like the job. First of all, if you don't like the job, you shouldn't be doing it. I enjoy the job very much. I've always in my life been about service, and even though some people always look at the outside and say we should run government like a business, it really is a service-oriented operation where you run things that you are able to run like a business, because there are things that you can do, and we have done in that type of case. I believe that that I'm good at my job. It's really the clerk's office job is misunderstood by a lot of people. It's hard to separate from the auditor. So I always say the way you tell the difference is the auditor does the fun stuff. People get married, they come there, they're in love, they buy a house, they buy a new car, those kinds of things, get licenses. When they get unhappy, they come to see the clerk. They get divorced, they fight over the car, they fight over the property, domestic violence issues, we take care of those. So 90% of what we do is working with the courts, with law enforcement, the prosecutor, sheriff, but with the public, and providing access to justice for all the parties that are concerned. I enjoy that. I've done that for 13 years and 9 days. There are a lot of things that we have been doing. Politician always says, well, I'd like to finish the things that I've started. And you might say, well, haven't you finished those in 13 years? But we have done a lot of improvements, I feel, in my office, helping the public in those 13 years. But we're right in the middle of a couple important issues. One is we're trying to get the judges, and we have succeeded, in giving up paper files. They love paper files because they've always done that. And they can look through them real quick, and they're very skilled at that, and they've all been attorneys, and they've had to. What we're trying to get them to do, and I have succeeded, is to use software on the bench that not only lets them access the files that they need right now, but any that they might need, they can just pull up electronically. I promised them that if they would agree to do this, I would make it as easy or easier than using paper files. And I've demonstrated that to them, and they're willing to do that. So I think that's a very positive step that we've taken on, that type of thing. We are also, right now we use a court management system called SCOMAS. It's an acronym for Superior Court Online Management System. It was created in 1977. It's a green screen. It works, but it doesn't have a lot of capabilities. So the clerk's offices, Superior Court offices, and the administrative offices of the courts. That's kind of the state overall umbrella for the court system. We're putting in a new program called Odyssey, which is an all-encompassing new case management system that is a lot better than the 1977 version of software, because it's purely a green screen. So we're doing a lot of those types of things. And our office is always about providing access to justice and serving the customers that come in. Probably 70–75% of the people that come into our office don't have attorneys, and they're trying to do things without attorneys. And it's a mystery as to how you get through these things. So we provide services like the courthouse facilitator to help people with family law matters. And we help about 1,600 people a year doing that. And I'm the chair of a statewide committee trying to expand that to also include help for lay guardians. Those are guardians that are taking care of their elderly parents. It could be a disabled child, and there's just a lot of hoops they have to go through. They can't afford, or they don't want to use attorneys, and they don't know what they're doing. Right now we cannot assist them because we can't practice law. But so we're after a law change and a court rule from the Supreme Court to allow us, through our courthouse facilitators, where we have the ability to help people with family law matters, help them with guardianship matters.
And that's something that's coming, that
yeah,
has already been filed as a bill that needs to
Yeah,
be
we're
filed?
gonna be, the County Clerks Association will be proposing that as a bill to the legislature and as an amendment to General Rule 27, which allows us to do small practice of law through trained people to help them with like divorces and parenting plans. We're trying to expand that to help them with guardianship matters.
Okay, so it's something that is happening right now. This is adding a little more capability.
Yeah,
to
this
that.
is adding the guardianships
Okay.
to the family law matters.
Is there any opposition to that?
We've had 2 stakeholder meetings of people around the state, and it's gotten very good reviews. The only oppositions we've had to that is one person that really wants to do more than that. They want to not only do guardianships, but they want to add in some other matters that have to do, that we could help people with in those matters. The problem with that is that it'll probably take 2 or 3, because once you start adding 5 or 6 things, you have all kinds of other people that, oh, I don't know about that. And so we're trying to do it one at a time, and the real issue right now is people helping with guardianship issues.
What's the kind of the best estimate on how many folks that would affect for you in a year?
It's not a big number. In our case, I'm thinking it's somewhere in the range of like 150 new filings a year. But these things can go on for years and years and years, and so those people, depending if they filed, if they have to come back in 3 years or 2 years, they have to come back and they have to do some more work with the paperwork, and they have to file some thing that has to do with money and figures and like that. And it's a little complicated on how to do that. So it's not just the new filings, but it's also all the residual ones that have to come back every once in a while. So it could be hundreds of cases a year.
And you have existing staff who has the expertise to do this and the time to do this?
You know, part of the rule that's set up is that we would train the people. We would get a...
You train your existing staff?
We train our we have 1.5 courthouse facilitators, so we could train our existing staff to help those people. Because it may only require maybe 4, 5, 6 hours more a week, and we could fit that in, and then the law is passed so that we could put a $20 surcharge on people that are filing guardianship cases. Because that's how it's done. When you're getting a divorce, none of you hopefully get a divorce, there's a $20 surcharge that helps pay for our courthouse facilitator, and then we pay an appointment fee.
So guardianship.
Guardianship, you'd add that would give a little small source of funding. That's why we need the law. We could
help pay for
we could just help people with a general rule from the Supreme Court, but we couldn't add the surcharge.
That's a surcharge that's not included right now.
No, there's no surcharge. That's what the law change would require, so we'd have the ability to charge that surcharge.
What about the technology improvements? I know we actually have used some of the things that you've done as far as with police records and court filings when there's felony charges, being able to review things like that online. What does your office do? I know the more we move this way, medical records, now obviously trying to get the judges to look at more things there. What does your office do for security of those sorts of things?
Well, it's really working with the IS, or Information Services Department, to provide those protections, and that's always a big concern of ours. But most of our records, people do not have to have a Freedom of Information Act to get. All court records, we have 9 case types. There are 3 case types that have to do with that have to do with adoptions, juveniles and stuff like that, that are sealed. Those are case types 5, 6, and 7. But the other case types, civil, criminal, domestic, things like that, are open to the public, and anyone can come in at any time and ask to see them. And we never ask what they want to see them for. It's none of our business. They're just all open. So those, when we go online to CORA, which is the Clerk's On-Site Records Access, those you don't get 5, 6, or 7. So you only get the other ones that you could get if you came to our counter. It just is easy for you to get them, that type of thing. Now the judges obviously can see any of the 9 case types, and they're all open to them. And we have very good protections from, they have certificates when they sign on that has to recognize each other, those types of things. And right now those things are just on our internal network, and we have a large firewall that separates us from the outside. So we're pretty well protected on those types of things.
What's the kind of financial investment needed? You were talking about something called Odyssey.
Yes.
Obviously, some of the other things that you've you've already worked on some of these
Let's
over the
take,
years.
let's take Cora. For Cora, which is, what we said is, the Sun used to have to send somebody over to look at these files, and you had to pay for each of the little copies. And attorneys too, you had to write from Bainbridge Island down, come in our office, pay 25 cents a sheet or something with the copies. So we thought, let's figure out a way to make this easier for them, and also it produces a little more income for us. Not that, because we thought, well, maybe people just stop buying as many copies across the counter, but they don't. It just makes it so easy to use that, and once you pay it's $50 a month subscription. And it costs that much just to start your car up and drive down from Bainbridge to get one document and drive back again in time and stuff like that.
Oh, so you've seen the number of subscriptions rise?
We have about 100 subscriptions to Core. About 60 are paid. The other, we don't charge Northwest Justice Project. The FBI subscribes, but we don't charge them. We don't charge other governmental agencies. Just more like private people that are that type of thing. So that cost us $8,000 to program and design, okay? And we have made that back plus more, so it was a good investment, just not because it wasn't a loss for the county, but it was a service to
Right.
our constituents and stuff like that. There's another one called Clerk ePass. Now, Clerk ePass is through a company, and we were the first, state of Washington, our office was the first one to use Clerk ePass, and a woman from Italy needed a certified copy of her divorce records because she was heading for Japan. And so we were able to give them over the internet. She didn't have to send the money. We could do this and send it back by registered mail or any of that kind of thing. What that is you can log on, and then there's this service. We can produce certified or non-certified court records, and we can send them electronically. And so that's a big service to people, especially people in the military overseas who need copies of things like that. They don't have to go through sending all that kind of paperwork. And again, that did not cost us anything, and we make a little bit of income from that because we get back the fees that we're required to charge for copies of things. Now, when you're talking about Odyssey, Odyssey is a thing that the state is working with the legislature, and I think it was a product, something cost like $22–23 million over 5 years, along with about $5 million in maintenance fees through 2018.
Statewide, system, everywhere.
And that was something that AOC, the Administrative Office of the Courts, that's the kind of umbrella group down in Olympia, they proposed that to the legislature, got the funding for that at the present time. So that's no funding from us. Now, we benefit from that as we will get this new software program for the Superior Court, for the court management system. Now, it may require us to, so far it's not been determined how much the state will help local counties, clerk's offices and courts, pay for some upgrades. One of the biggest problems is bandwidth for people in eastern Washington. And it depends where you're at. Some places in eastern Washington have great bandwidth, but other places not as much. And a lot of this traffic has to go back and forth. So that's a concern. And then some real small counties like Garfield County has like 2,300 people in the whole county. They have to provide all the government services. That's less than South Kitsap High School. And yet they have to have all the government agencies. So it'll be a little more difficult for them maybe to pick up a few expenses on getting this in place. But that's yet to be determined. So but it may be some expense to the county, but it certainly will be worth getting the newer type thing. Now, your original question was how much did some of these technology things cost?
Correct.
Maybe I didn't want to lose your question.
No, that was what I was. That was what I was asking at. As you continue to go in this direction, what's the future that you see as far as making the investments and then do these things pay off for the county?
Now, a couple, one.
Like with the judges, is there a lot of like hardware investment that needs to be made?
Yeah, there are some hardware investments that and the software investments, but right now we have 2 full-time employees that all they do is when someone starts a new case, they take the file folder on the outside. The file folder costs about $12,000 a year just for this. Now, they're a little more elaborate than this. They're color-coded and they have the stamped on it, things like that.
So there's $12,000 on folders.
Just $12,000 on folders each year.
Yeah.
So we'll save that right off the bat by not, although we're still buying a half year's worth of folders to kind of transition into this. There won't be that. We have 2 full-time employees that when the documents are filed by paper, one of the things the state Odyssey program will bring is the ability to e-file, which we're looking forward to. But we take this file folder, 2 full-time employees. They set the file up, and then they have to file it, okay? Then whenever anybody wants a copy, they have to go back, pull that file, bring it out, take it apart to copy things, put it back together, that kind of stuff. The judge, we pull hundreds of files a day for judges, because we have 9 judicial officers, so we have to pull a lot of files. And then we have to put the files back. And we have 2 full-time people committed to that. So we will be able to transition those people out of that to doing some other things in our office that directly will be affected by going to paperless. Or it's really not quite paperless, it's sometimes called paper on demand, because they can still print out and put onto paper, but we do not provide the paper.
Okay. And because there's going to be a segment of the population, I mean, this is what we deal with in here, this is balance of digital and print. And so you do still have ways for folks who come in.
If they come to our office, and which we do now on things we have in, if they want a copy of it, we can just print them out a copy. That's why it kind of be the paper on demand. But in the lobby of our office, we have computers set up so people are getting real good at it. They'll go in and look up case files and stuff like that, and they can look it online and then find out what they want, and we can print it out for them. Or if they don't know, we're recognized as one of the best customer relations places. We have the best customer, we think, in the state, and attorneys who go to other places tell us that. We really try to help the people because they need help. And so we'll print out whatever they need. We have to charge them 25 cents a copy, because that's a requirement.
But from the user perspective, even with a lot of the technology changes, if people aren't comfortable with doing that,
We'll help them.
they can still do it in the traditional way. This isn't going to be taken away immediately or something like that.
Oh, no. What I told the judges is starting December 31st of this year, we will no longer update the paper files. We will still have the paper files. And there'll be some that, we have paper files that nobody ever updates because they're closed or something like that. Now, after a while, we get an order to be able to destroy those because they're in microfilm and or electronic or backups or something like that. Because we're required to keep all the records in perpetuity, and we have stuff back to before statehood and things like that. Now they're all now on microfilm, and any that are of significant importance we transfer to the archives at the Secretary of State's office. But yeah, when I got there, we still had ledger books, these great big ledger books, and I had those converted into microfilm and later to images and things like that.
I wanted to ask about the jury process too, and I asked because we've had a few people in the newsroom go through the juries, and so we've been talking about it here, but what are you doing to kind of streamline that and make it, there's people who always wonder, well, I sit here all day long, I sit here for 3 days, and I think everyone knows that's part of how our system works, but are there ways that you've tried to address making this more convenient, easier for people to take part in, more understandable for folks?
Yes, there are a couple of ways. One is we have courthouse technologies. We have a jury management system that so we can send we mail the summons out to the people, and they can respond online if they want to go online and respond to the jury summons. But I think you're probably talking about more just the inconvenience. Okay, well, I think that's one of the positives we have, because we understand the inconvenience of jury service. So, I am not allowed to excuse anyone from jury service unless the judges have authorized me to do so. And they have on a few things. Because the judges are the only one by the RCWs that can excuse you from serving on jury service. They've allowed me, if you get a letter from your doctor on a medical type of thing that says you cannot serve, then I can excuse those people from that. If you're 75 or older and you don't want to serve, some people really want to serve when they're 75 or older, you can ask and we will permanently excuse you because you're 75 or older. One of the things that's different around the state is that about half of jury service is done through the clerk's office and about half is done through the Superior Court. The Superior Court is required to do it, but they can delegate that. So we volunteered a long time ago to do jury administration for them because we do it, we're good at it. We can do it in something the court doesn't have to mess around with. So in other counties, you may be subject to jury duty for 2 weeks or a month or something like that. We have what we think is the shortest. You're subject to jury duty for 1 week, 1 call, or 1 trial. So, and you call in the night before. Or you could call in real early in the morning too, doesn't make any difference. You call in, and if your name is called to come in the next day, you come in that next day, and if you are not needed, you don't have to call in the rest of the week because you've only at risk once. In Mason County, you're at risk for 2 weeks. If they call you in the first day and you come in, you come in and they don't need you, you go home, you still have to keep calling because they could call you back multiple times during the next 2 weeks. So we get lots of complaints about other counties because we do it a short way.
And that was the decision the county is able to make?
Yeah, we can make that. And that was done by Bob Freudenstein, who was a former clerk before that. Let's just do 1 week because it's hard enough to serve our jury service.
Yeah.
Also, if you call us up and it's inconvenient for you to serve the time called, we will delay your jury service to the time of your choice in the next 11 months. So if it's not right because you're going to overseas or you just can't do it, we'll do that type of thing too. And the ultimate answer is you can come in and explain it and explain to the judge. We used to have a jury room that was a little bit larger than a holding room for it, a little bit larger than this. People would sit out in the halls and all kinds of things. One of the things I did was to, when the administration building was built, a new one, there was more room that was opened up, and so we worked to get a nice new jury room and holding area, so it's much more convenient for people to serve on a jury duty when they're there. Now, as to how long you sit there, that's a function of, I'm not blaming the court, but that's a function of the court. It depends on how ready they are to accept the jurors. And we always go a little ways with this with the court, but the judge always wants lots of jurors called because they're afraid they'll run out. Well, they're just oversensitive to that. They never run out. And so we may call 50 or 60 people to get 14. And so that's why you have a lot of people and then you're not needed, you sit there for a while. Another thing that happens from time to time is attorneys use going to jury trial as an incentive to get the other side to settle. And so lots of times you'll come in, be called in on a case, they think you're going to jury, and then you won't be needed because the parties have settled and that type of thing. I don't agree with that, but that's just techniques that people use. And there's nothing wrong with them, it's just those it's doing it in service to all the people that you got called in that have their own lives and things like that. So we're kind of sensitive to that.
And countywide, the budget's coming up for discussion before too long. What do you see as a priority for the office in the next budget cycle for the county?
We usually don't ask, the clerk's office usually does not ask for much that we haven't had before. By that I mean if we have a project that we want to do or some new type of thing, I usually try to find that within the budget that I have. And I'm kind of known for not coming in and asking for 22 new employees or 10 new employees or something like this. This year, during the Great Recession, as it's now called, we eliminated 5.5 positions in the clerk's office, okay? And we have not replaced them. We did away with 2 supervisors and gave those supervisory function to the remaining 3 supervisors. So this year I've asked to restore 1, not supervisor, but 1 person at the front counter, which is a priority for us because now and hopefully you don't have to come and use our service. So we do 2 happy things, passports and adoptions. But other than that, you're coming in because not for the most pleasant thing. So I hope that I don't see you. But we have people that are lined up because of the front counter, and people, you might think, well, why don't you just pull somebody off of another job? We are required to provide an in-court clerk, the one that says, all rise, the Superior Court for the State of Washington. That's an employee of my office. All the rest of the people work for the courts or the judge. And that has to do with the division of power. We're in the executive branch, judicial branch. So we are required to provide that whenever the court needs it. So we just can't pull that person and put them at the front counter. We have 2 people assigned to do collections for legal financial obligations. That's to get restitution back to victims and things like that. They bring in about $1.2 to $1.4 million a year. Now, if we pulled one of those people off, then it's not that it's going to be cut in half, but it's not a good, wise use of the $57,000 it takes to hire a new employee in my office. We have a very low salary schedule in our office. it doesn't pay to pull that person off to do that. We have 1.5 courthouse facilitators who, again, are helping 1,600 people a year. You can't just pull one of them off, or they wouldn't be able to be helping those people. And one thing that's important that a courthouse facilitator does is it's not just to help the people, it's to help the court. Because when the people come in with divorce documents that they filled out themselves and they're not properly done, it's usually the commissioner. The commissioner will look at them and say they're not filled out properly, you need to come back. And the people, and he cannot, by law, tell them what they need to do to fix it up. So they would go back out and they would try it again, come back. So what we do now is, people now getting, it's a dissolution, but a divorce, everybody knows what a divorce, has to either see Kitsap Legal Services, an attorney, or have their papers reviewed by the courthouse facilitator. And so what that does is, the papers are filled out correctly, and you never have this back and forth through the door from that standpoint. But back on the budget. So we're looking to restore. There's just not places we can take them from. So what's suffered is we don't have as many people to work the front counter, because those 5 people had to come from someplace. And so now we're getting more lines at the office, and that distresses me because we are known for customer service and people don't understand. You can't say, well, we're down staff. You never give that as an, they don't understand that kind of stuff. You know, you should be doing your job and stuff. So we've really made the case. Now the thing that I have done is, I have found within my budget, we have cut $70,000. It only costs $57,000 for the staff person benefits. I say only because a deputy sheriff costs about $95,000, and there's different things like that. So I've found a place where we can cut in jury services $70,000 in expenditures we won't need next year. So we save that 70, and we've increased $55,000 in additional revenue that we're probably going to get. So from that, I'm proposing that we take that and not take it from some other, there's only so much money in the county, not take it from somebody else, but just reconfigure things within our budget to come up with the money to hire that person. And that's what I usually tend to do when we're asking for something. Now, that's the main thing in our budget. Other than that, we're not asking for any more money or whatever. We just, well, we can't control how much the county decides to give for a COLA or something like that. So that money is just added automatically. It's not something we have to request. So that's our main request.
How do you do performance evaluation of those facilitators? Is it billed like an attorney would bill hours to certain clients, or how do you judge? Are we treating these 1,600 people right? Is that number growing or shrinking, or how much time of theirs? How much time of ours is that taking?
One criteria that we have is how often does the court send them back to get the paper stuff?
Yeah, how many people?
Rarely it ever happens, because they're very skilled and very trained to do that. And those are the same people we're hoping to do the guardianship, and they'd have to be equally trained. We keep meticulous records of what each person comes in for. They fill out a little form, and we ask them to voluntarily give out what their income is. And we have people that use the courthouse facilitator that make $70,000 or $80,000 a year. They just don't want to hire an attorney. Now we don't discriminate against them, because that's not our job to do so. Now that's not a big number. Most people really come there, really have a hard time, and they're seeking a divorce. So there are different government programs that we ask them if they're on one of those programs, and what your income is, and what you're there exactly for, what kind of a family law matter, things like that. And then they pay a $25 fee to have an appointment, and they get 40 minutes to an hour out of that appointment, which is much better than they could get anyplace else. And people tend to be very satisfied. They say real good things. We have anecdotal type evaluations from people that come in and things like that. But yeah, I'm trying to think how more performance evaluation we would do.
Yeah, I guess, do you track how many of those folks have to return for a second or third time? You were saying earlier that some people end up coming back 2 years later.
Oh, that has to do with guardianships.
That's more with that.
Yeah, because divorce is a final one-time thing. Yeah. But now they may come back to change their parenting plans. But that's not because it wasn't done effectively to begin with. It's because things in their lives have changed that they need a parenting plan. But in guardianships, a guardianship is sometimes a lifelong commitment.
You're always.
The state requires them to always check in and say how they're doing with the person's finances, or with other things that have to do with the guardianships, because you just don't get a guardianship and it's all done. You have to come back, and and they want to make sure these people are really monitoring and being appropriate guardians, and not doing something untold.
Maybe this is why I'm asking. You said it was about 1,600
Mhm.
last year. Is that pretty consistent? Has it
Yeah,
been going up?
No, it has been pretty consistent.
Even
It's
with, growth in the county, that stays pretty
Yeah,
consistent?
it's pretty much because they can only handle so many, because they have 1.5. But it's been pretty consistent that.
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing, even with the growth in the county, we haven't noticed a great big increase in court filings. It's really kind of strange. I don't know why, but we average somewhere in the range of 9,500 court filings for all case types, plus another category, which they're just real quickies, so if you put it in, it look like we're handling lots of cases. So
I guess that's what I'm
it's
wondering.
somewhere,
How do
there's
you
not a
prepare
big.
for it?
No, I used to do public defense. Until January this year, I used to do public defense. That's one of the big things that I'm also proud of is when I started the clerk's office had been doing public defense for about 1.5 years. Okay, they took that over from the business office and took it into the clerk's office to do. And we had a half-time and then a full-time employee who was the kind of the coordinator of program for public defense. Public defense is mandated to the state to do, but they do an unfunded mandate to the counties, and we have to do public defense. It costs $3 to $3.4 million a year for the county to do public defense for those that are subject to losing their liberty, but are indigents, don't have the money to pay for their own trial. So that costs between $3 to $3.4 million a year. And my clerk's budget is about $3 million a year, a little bit over. So it used to be over half of my budget. Now I only have a nice small little $3 million budget. But what happened when they had that one is we were paying attorneys, private attorneys on a contract basis for felonies, $1,135 to take a felony. Now you'd love to hire an attorney for $1,135 to defend you on burglary, murder, or any of that kind of stuff. And they can take 150 of those cases. So if you take 150 times 1135, it comes out to be 170,000 something that an attorney could take these cases, and we actually paid law firms to do that. Now the law firms would hire an attorney at $40,000, take the $170,000 and hire an attorney at $40,000, and the other people, the partners would profit from that. So I thought, this is another thing, we need to run this more like a business. And so what we did is I had a person that ran the Pierce County Public Defender's Office come in, do an evaluation, and he recommended, a recommendation which I accepted, to do a mixed system where we take the felonies and we hire attorneys, in-house attorneys, which we can hire for $90,000 for between $85,000 and $90,000, salary and benefits. And they can take those 150 cases and in effect save us $70,000, $80,000. And that's what we did. And so public defense has been pretty steady. As a matter of fact, we made it go down, and it's counterintuitive, but every time you hire an attorney, you save money for the county in a felony attorney. We don't do misdemeanors because the amount you pay for misdemeanors is so small, it's kind of a push as to whether we should hire our own attorneys. So we kind of cherry-picked the felony cases. And now that they have 11, I no longer have that office because we're supposed to be a neutral party. It was getting large enough that even though we had a real good separation between the public defense division of our office, we asked it to be moved back to the commissioners, and they gave it to the budget office that is underneath them, because we're a neutral party and shouldn't have to be, and it was getting big enough that people might have thought that type of thing. But we save hundreds of $1,000s a year in public defender costs by treating that as a business. Another thing we do as a business, I may be getting off of what your thing is, because I always try to increase revenues, fair revenues where I can, to help the county in budget type things. So people coming in, when they did passports, we do passports, and they were saying, do you take photos, and finally I got tired of that and said, let's just buy our own cameras. So we purchased a photo and printer for $1,200, okay? We charge $10, which is a little bit more than other people because it's convenience, and we give them 4 pictures, so if they need it for visas, their wallet to give to their friends, they can also look at the picture, make sure it's, what a picture they like. If not, we'll take it again, but it's just electronic, so it doesn't lose anything. And then we print it out for them. And all we had to do is take 140 photos, which we take more than that in a month, and we paid for our whole system. From then on, we made quite a little bit. So in the last 7 years, we've increased, just on taking photos, $90,000 in additional revenue to the county, just because we decided to take passport photos in the last 7 years. So that's about $12,500 a year, which we were missing before, and the people like it. It's a great convenience to them. So it's not something, oh God, we have to pay for that. They don't have to. You can go anyplace else you want, but they like that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's maybe a little cheaper to go somewhere else.
It may be a little cheaper, but it's more convenient.
Right. So you have,
And
it's
sometimes
not like
they
you're
bring
stealing
the-
something from the other shop.
Yeah.
either.
And we are an authorized passport agency, so sometimes they bring them in and they have photos they're trying to use and they're right, so we have to tell them to go back and have
Yeah, cut
Walmart
it out.
do it again, Walmart do it again or something like that.
Questions there?
Good.
Dave, thanks. This was a really good explanation of your
Great.
office and kind of what you're doing.
Okay.
Anything else that you'd like to just leave us with?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
I have all these little things,
Yeah.
my opponent always, I don't know, we only had one appearance at the bar luncheon, and so we got up and he started by saying, first thing I want to do is stop that democratic tax and spending that's going on in the office, and people were just sitting there with their mouths open, because we don't do anything like that. The clerk's office, and so also the auditor, and the treasurer, and the assessor, are partisan offices, but only because the Washington State Constitution says they are. Nothing we do is partisan, it's all nonpartisan. We don't do policy. Now, commissioners do policy, so it can be pretty partisan on some of the issues and things like that, but nothing we do. We never ask anybody that comes in our office if you're, as I always kind of joke, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, a independent, libertarian, or vegetarian, you're all treated the same. And we really do. And it's a thing that the court clerks, about half of them are Republicans and half are Democrats in the 39 counties. A couple counties, they're nonpartisan because they have a charter government. We never, I don't even know some of them, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. So none of the issues we deal with, what we deal with is helping people access service, access to justice, service, and helping the law and justice system. And so lots of times people look at these jobs as kind of an election prize more than trying to do a service or something. And they misunderstand the job, or they don't know what the job is. And so once they get in, they're kind of disappointed that they don't have all this control over policy issues and Democratic, Republican issues or something like that. We just don't do this. And a lot of people say, run your office like a business. Well, where government runs an office purely like a business, the public doesn't like it. Red light cameras, now that's running your office like a business. That's running government like a business. You set up red lights, and if you go through, there's a camera, because you can't afford to put a policeman, but it's more sporting to the public, I think, to say, can I get through that can I get through, and there isn't a policeman around, but when there's a red camera, it's always going to catch them. So that's somehow not sporting. But that's running your office like a business, because you're checking on those kinds of things. It's just not possible. You can do lots of business-like things in your office, but you just can't run it. Government is not a business per se. You can use business techniques, but people are not going to pay to drive on the roads. You can't. Police, when the fireman comes up, I mean, they tried that. I think that was the case. They tried in a couple of states. If you don't pay for your fee for your file, they won't respond to you. Well, nobody likes that. So you can do some things, but it's just not as easy as when you're on the outside. I'm just going to run that office like a business. It's just not that easy.
Had you ever considered just running as an independent? I always wonder this about, because I agree with you, there's a number of offices that I don't understand why they're partisan. And I always think, well, what if everyone just said independent? And
yeah, if you could get everybody to do that,
if
as soon as you
everyone
filed for office independent, somebody else would come in and file together. And people are still used to voting that. Now, the only way you can change it, and I would advocate doing this, and when they had charter guy, I don't know how many of you remember charter government the last time we tried it. What they tried to do was to go too far and change too many things. In charter government, if they'd have just tried to change 3 or 4 things, I think it would have passed. And once you have charter government in, then you can amend the charter and get the rest of things, but they tried to do too much. But I would certainly advocate jobs like assessor and clerk, those jobs, being nonpartisan. But I would never advocate that they not be elected. They have to be elected. And the reason I'm so firm on that is because if you try to get help out of the Parks Department, Department of Community Development, some other types of things, those people, when you call that person is not responsible to the voters. That person is responsible to the county commissioners, which is many steps removed. When someone calls my office and complains, they can talk to me. and I make sure I call them back and respond. And that's the good part about, they can be nonpartisan, but I still think they need to be elected, so you maintain that, not getting lost in what's called the bureaucracy, and then there's, no, you just point fingers, no one can. I'm the one that the buck stops at for answers to questions.
And they'll be able to bring that up in 4 years.
And they can bring that up in 4 years or
That
something
makes
like that.
sense. Well, Dave.
Good.
Thanks,
Thanks, it was
thanks for your
enjoyable.
time.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely appreciate it. Glad we got you in here.